So Shane, how do you uh how do you feel about social media right now, man?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag. I
Yeah.
think it's one of those things. It's really good when it's good,
Hmm.
and when it's bad, it's really dark.
Right. Yeah. I had thought about, like, thinking about it in terms of like pros and cons, right? And so I wrote a list here, and so my list, I noticed, has a lot more cons than it does pros, right? So I'll try to go down the list of pros, right? So for one, it's you can communicate and share things in a shorter amount of time, right? Like, if I want to share a video or want to hit somebody on the messaging, or uh, you know tweet something, or something like that, I can do that without having to really worry about if they got the message or something like that, right? I don't have to you don't have to write a letter explaining, really what you mean and stuff like that. We can have these conversations online, like we do with Zoom, not having to really worry about, you know, I guess things being uh, miscommunicated. And of course, I mean, that's not to say that social media doesn't um, have its miscommunications, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then, there's a lot of different platforms. You can do different things, right? Like, there's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's YouTube, you know, there's I don't know, all the others, like Chinese apps, TikTok, right?
With all the people dancing.
Right.
Yep.
all those, all those people dancing, right? And and I also think that, um, recently, there's been a lot more uh, of an ability to have freedom of speech, right? So, um, people like Elon Musk have called Twitter, the political square now,
Yep.
right? It used to be, what do they call that place in London? Uh, which it still is now. I mean, it still is. There's a lot of people that go there and they
Oh,
talk.
Trafalgar Square, or
Is it Trafalgar Square or
it
something like
might
that?
be. I think they have a lot of squares there where a lot of
Right.
people
Yeah,
uh,
they'll go
get
there and
together and
have
talk
these,
and stuff.
right. They have these debates about religion, and you know, and all of that stuff. And you'll have preachers there, and imams and rabbis, and Afrocentric people, and uh, Eurocentric people, right? And they'll be clamoring. They're all there talking, trying to get their point out, right?
Yep.
It kind of reminds me of, and same thing with Twitter. It kind of reminds me of Second Temple, uh, Jerusalem,
Mm.
where it's like all this stuff is going on at one time. You got the priest sacrifice, they're doing this sacrifice on the temple, and you got people coming with birds and everything, and there's smoke everywhere, and you got people with tambourines, and doing all this stuff. You got the Sanhedrin, and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and everybody's just,
and nobody can agree on anything, and everybody's
right.
battling it out, and then your king's not even Jewish. Your king's a Greek. Like.
Right. So with me, that's why I kind of draw back from it. I'm like, I don't know if I want to. I'm just waiting for the true king to come.
Amen,
I'm
man.
not I'm not dealing with it. But and other things, like, you can share enjoyable moments, like, hey, just had a kid, or just got married, and things like that. So there are things like that, and then you can promote your own business. You can grow your business, create websites, you
Yep.
know, promote that on various platforms, and you know, and especially with like YouTube, there's a provision for, I think, sharing meaningful information, right, or meaningful talks, like like hopefully what we're doing right now, right?
Yes.
You know, faith-based talks, sharing knowledge, history, science, and even healthy entertainment, right?
Yep.
So those are all positive things, right?
As
Um,
long as it's something that's not that's not on their no list, you know.
right,
Yeah.
right. There's
Yep.
censorship list, right?
And especially with YouTube, it's ever changing, you know, like
Right,
for it's not even from day to day, it's from moment to moment.
right. You don't know what you're gonna get flagged for. So, hopefully we don't say nothing today that
No.
get we get flagged for, right? But you know, I think in terms of uh, and this is just my opinion. This is, I think, a subjective thing. I can't, well, actually, I take that back. I don't think it's a subjective thing. I think it's pretty objective, right? We could say that the amount of information that comes to a person or at a person through social media and through just being able to use these platforms is enormous, right? Like you can probably see more than 100 things in probably uh, just an hour and 30 minutes, right? If you're really just going down the list, right? And I think in terms of the human brain, um, we don't have the ability to really take in all that information at once, without a feeling of anxiety or stress, right? Because especially with like political news or catastrophes, right? Like this Chinese balloon that just flew over, right? So that just becomes a sensational thing. It's like, oh my God, like they're here. What's happening? What's about to happen, right? Or the Russia and Ukraine war, right? It's like, oh my God, here we go again. And then it's just one thing after the other, right? And I think
Those things can really bring you down, you know.
yes,
Especially with, first of all, let's be real here. You really, you don't know what to trust and what not to trust on
yes,
social media.
right,
And then when they try to censor it, and they're saying that they're censoring it to try to make it, to try to make the things that are on your news feed more trustworthy, it
mm,
makes you even more skeptical of what you're seeing, because you're not sure if you're only being presented with a particular set of facts
right,
to make you think a certain way about the issue or event or something, that you're just being presented with a particular buffet of carefully curated ideas and posts and things to make you think a certain way.
right, right. And like I had seen this video. Ron DeSantis was actually had hosted a talk with some various people.
Mhm.
This is maybe about a week ago, and he was saying like I forget what news company it was. It might have been CNN or something like that. But anyways, they were talking about censorship and how like news companies like to um, cut out information that
Mhm.
they don't find to be it's not suitable to what they're trying to say, and so they'll cut out certain information. And what I find is like that's kind of like when historians say once something gets out there uh, historically, it's hard to retract those things sometimes, right? So like uh, you talk about a particular, like me and you were talking about a couple of days ago, like a particular president, right? um, once books start being written and things like that about a particular president, then everything about that president starts to be seen as either negative, totally negative, or totally positive, right? And it's hard to say what well, what about this thing? Like he did this, or what about that, right? Like, this might be a positive thing, right?
Well,
And
in those cases, you're seeing reality
mhm,
get transformed into a myth.
right, right,
It
right,
gets memorialized into a myth, and at that point, really, the facts don't matter a whole lot.
right,
Um,
right,
and you brought up history. I mean, you can see that evidence of that is all these different historians all have different takes on the same time period.
right, right,
And it's because they're all memorializing it according to their line of thinking.
right.
Um, but it
And
would
then,
be very difficult to just take a whole bunch of facts and data and just put it all in a sheet and say, well, this is 1792,
yeah,
and
right,
most, the majority of us wouldn't be able to make sense of that.
right, right, yeah, yeah.
Um,
That
I
makes
I
sense.
I wanted to point out a couple of things.
Hmm.
I'd like for us to kind of tease these out.
Okay.
Uh, that I was just thinking about as far as social media goes in general, just talking about like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all
Okay.
these things.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess they're really observations. So
Hmm.
one is, and this can be positive and negative,
Hmm.
that it kind of um levels the hierarchy of our social structure.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is that you can tag, so on Twitter, for instance, you can tag any journalist, any
Hmm.
politician in a post you're making.
Hmm.
And in theory, you can private message any one of them that you want. Now, whether they're going to get your private message or if they're going to reply to it, that's completely on them. But
Right.
it gives you it gives it brings it's kind of like a great leveler. And I think
Right.
there are positive aspects to that and there are negative aspects to that. you
Right.
know um the neg I would say, probably, at least in my mind right now, the most glaring negative aspect of that I can think of is that it it's kind of sows confusion in people's minds.
Hmm.
Like, oh, this person is supposed to be a respected senator, but I I can direct message them at 11:32 p.m. when I'm really mad about something I just saw on. I just got worked up by a political commentator I just watched on TV. So the other thing is that that social media, and I'm especially thinking of Twitter,
Hmm.
um, really Twitter and things like Twitter, what is it called, like Getter and like Donald Trump's Truth Social and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, how you, and also Instagram and everything, how you have followers, and then you have pages you can follow, and then you have these hierarchies
Hmm.
of you have these hierarchies on the networks that you can visually see that
Right.
you otherwise wouldn't be able to see in the real world.
Right.
In the real world, in order to see a hierarchy, you would have to kind of pick up on social cues.
Yes.
Some hierarchies, like royalty and elected officials, or CEOs of companies or something, that's very easy to see that they're at the top of that they're at the top of the heap. But
Yes.
for most of us, with the other people that we interact with, it's kind of tough for us to really see, okay, so Adam is at a higher level than Charles,
Right.
and Jack is in between the two of them on this hierarchy.
Right.
Well, I think one thing that social media does is it reveals to us, it reveals to us more clearly and objectively the hierarchy that exists in the real world. If
Right.
that makes any, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I think you know so I think what is attached to that is that with social media, or being, just being online, you know, uh, when you feel like saying something at 11:30 because you got worked up, right? You can
Mhm.
say that without any um, without feeling like that person is gonna come directly to your door and be right in your face and
Right.
have to sit down with you and actually have a conversation, right? Um, and so I think that that in a way is is it has its pros and cons. You know,
Yeah.
it's a good and bad thing, right? Because you know you can get so worked up that you know, especially if the person responds to you, right? You
Yeah.
know, they're like, oh, well, you know, you said this, and you know, then the other person is like, well, you know, I didn't. So you know, you can get into this you know, rivalrous situation online, which is very easy to do because the person is not you know, I mean, reciprocity is there, but it's not physical, right? It's not,
Yeah.
you know, you're not in the presence of the person. So the way you feel about things is kind of like I'm just rattling off how I feel, and I can, you know, I can shout this person down. I can
Yep.
say whatever I want to say, right? And so I think that you know, that has its benefits because it can make somebody who feels like they're not heard, uh, I guess in a sort of way, be heard much easier. Um, but I think the inability to be careful about how you say things or what you say, and also is it of substance, right? Is what you're saying, is it meant to sort of shame that person into into talking or defending themselves, or is it meant to for constructive criticism, right?
Mm.
Like I'm saying this in order for you to think about what I'm saying, you know, rather than I'm saying this in order to bait you into a into an argument, right? And that's where I was gonna get I was gonna talk to you about that whole thing with like we watched this thing with Roland Martin on
Hmm.
Valuetainment with Patrick Beck David, right? And we both know that, you know, Roland Martin likes to bait people into arguments, you know, and you know, I mean, some people are like that, you know, they just have that attitude, and you know, some
They
people
got
will
pretty
say,
hot and heavy a few times.
yeah,
They got pretty fired up.
it did, right? But he said, you know, there was one thing that I pulled out of that, and that was, you know, he said, I had gone to Chicago, right? Now, if he watches this and he tries to like, you know, well, that's not what I said. So I'm just gonna say I'm paraphrasing. So, um, you know, in short, he said he went to Chicago and he wanted to get his shoes shined, and there was this guy who I guess he worked there, worked at the shoe shine stand, and the guy went off on him, you know, and started cursing him out and stuff. And he told Bet David, he said, you know, he said, so I told him, I said, man, do you realize that I could have pulled out my two phones, okay, and and recorded you, you know, and made you look, you know, and had you go viral, you know, and made you look like a fool, you know, something to this effect, right? And I think to myself, like, you know, this is the sort of power play, you know, like that, you know, that people who have a following on social media, you know, especially someone like Roland Martin, can use to his advantage in order to shame someone into uh, to me, it's not even recognizing what they did wrong, right? It's not saying, okay, you realize the way you came at me was offensive, right? And it's disrespectful. It wasn't that. It was, do you realize I can make you look like a fool, and I have the power to do that, right? And I think that's the real concern that I have when it comes to social media is that we people use it oftentimes as a power move, right? To say I can shame you or push you to change your ways because I have the power to do so, right?
Yeah.
And those kind of those kind of conversations and stuff like that, to me, that's what readily happens on social media. It's not so much that we're trying to get people to think about different positions, is that we're using it to um, for control, right? Or we're using it to be the one that, like, I'm the one that, it's like a competition, or like I said, like a power move, and I think that we should be stewards when it comes to social media, right? We should be
Yeah.
stewards. So that's when you talk about balance, yes, it levels it out, right? But of course, then there are also people who kind of uh, you know it's like the Bible says, even that which they have shall be taken from them. It's
Mhm.
like, if you have a little bit of success, somebody who has more success than you will come and take that from you. So, I that's a you know but let me ask you this. Do you feel like social media causes a sense of isolation and loneliness uh within society, or because it's like, for instance, you see people who, like, and people have alluded to this. I've heard this many times, that you'll see friends and stuff like that, and they're celebrating, and or you see, it might not even be friends. You see, people who are having a good time. They're at a wedding or a celebration, right? And you're not there. Um, you know, I think that can cause a sense of, like, man, well, why can't I join in? Why can't I be a part of that? You know? Um, so yeah, I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, yeah. Well, I think what it does is, really, if you think about what loneliness is,
Mhm.
it's, I would say that you could, instead of using the word lonely or loneliness, you could say excluded. Yeah, that you feel like you've been excluded,
Right,
and
right.
I think those two feelings are really the same.
Yes.
Because if you have a bunch of friends that are out doing something, and let's say they purposefully didn't tell you that they were doing it, and
Hmm.
you don't know that you were excluded, then you're not
Hmm.
going to feel lonely, and you're not going to feel excluded. you
Right,
know but
right.
with social media, what it's done is it's made it so that if you have friends that check in whenever they go to the 7-Eleven,
Mhm.
that check in whenever they go somewhere, they're immediately posting pictures on Instagram of whatever they've done.
Yeah.
you know they're trying to do that because they want to communicate their status,
Right.
and you not being a part of it, you do feel excluded. And I think a big part of the reason that social media has been so successful is that the algorithms want for you to feel excluded, so that you
Hmm.
use social media more often to try to feel included
Hmm.
by browsing through your news feed more. But
Hmm.
the ironic thing is, the more that you browse through your news feed trying to feel included, the more excluded you feel.
Right.
You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's a situation where everybody loses except for the social media platform, because they're able to keep you scrolling, which is what their goal is.
Right. Right. They're they're monetizing you.
Yeah,
They're,
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's
What's the saying that whenever that for most of the products of Silicon Valley, you are the product that's being sold.
yeah, man. I mean, you know, I mean, and this is another thing here. You know, social media, having a a real effect on sense of self-esteem, right? In particular with young with young women, with uh, you know girls, right?
Yeah.
Always trying to uh, what's the word? get clicks, get likes, right? For their appearance, right?
Yeah.
And Jonathan Haidt, who's a social psychologist, has studied this, and you know, um, and maybe I'll put um, one of his articles down in the link once we upload this video. But he has a great study on how uh, young girls' self-esteem is affected by, um, you know, or just, I mean, I guess, you could probably say this for young men too, right? Their self-esteem is affected by uh, how many, how much they're liked on social media, right? You
Yeah.
know, particularly, I guess, through Instagram and stuff like that. And and um, and he's talking about how um, the kind of uh, conversations that are had between teenagers and stuff like that online can has led to suicide,
Yeah.
right? Leading people to want to commit suicide. I mean, this is really, I think, one of the darkest sides of social media, and I mean, it really, to me, that is a tragedy, right? Because one, I think that shows that our society really has become so isolated, uh, to where people don't feel like they can get affirmation from a real community, right? Affirmation from real friends, and a sense of belonging from real people. Real reciprocity, right? Um, and I think this is something that the church um, can really do a better job at trying to understand, because I think that's what the church is all about, right? It's the sense of
Yeah.
coming together and a community, right? And being able to engage with, communion with real people, you know. Um,
So I think you hit on something huge, that social media is both a direct and indirect, well, on the in the cons column,
mhm.
which had, there are quite a few cons there. um
Right.
Social media is a direct and indirect attack on the dignity of the human person. And
Yes.
one of the things it does is, especially for young women, like on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all the other ones,
Mhm.
what it does is it it trains them to think of themselves as a brand to market,
Yes.
and to turn their image into a commodity.
Yes. Hmm.
And so women will post pictures of themselves in their stories. They'll post pictures of themselves on Facebook, dance videos on TikTok and stuff, and
Yes.
they'll repost them over and over and over again, so that
Yes.
they can see if they can get more eyeballs, to see if they can attract more likes.
Yes.
And really, the culture overall is telling those young women, you will find your meaning in the number of eyeballs that you can get on your image on Instagram that you share on your story, or
Right.
or your value is based upon the number of likes you can get.
Yes.
It's telling them, turn yourself into a commodity and market
Mhm.
yourself to the public.
Yeah.
And again, full circle, it turns you into the product.
Right.
you know
Right.
and and now I think that is where there is a big difference between the more visual based social media platforms, well, just more visual and personal, like Instagram and TikTok and Facebook,
Mhm.
um versus something like Twitter or Gab or Getter or any of the other ones. I know there's a bunch of them with all kinds of weird names.
I can't
um
keep up, bro.
yeah, I can't either, but those I think are more are more based upon are like are more based on like facts and you know, sharing opinions
Mhm.
and gaslighting one another with you know, with making putting crazy statements on there to try to see if you can trigger other people. You know, you
Yeah.
may not even necessarily believe what you're posting, you just want to try to
Yeah.
get traction.
Right.
But but you know, and that's one of the reasons I think, you know, and I'm painting with a broad brush here,
Mhm.
but a lot of, you know, I would say that there are more women promoting themselves on Instagram than are promoting themselves on Twitter.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
on the flip side, I would say there are more men
Yeah.
that are promoting themselves on Twitter than on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
now I am sure that you can find men on Instagram that are taking pictures themselves making that duck face, you know, and stuff, and posting pictures of themselves. I'm sure you can find that,
Right.
but it's overwhelmingly women that are doing that. And then I think it's a lot of men that are going on Twitter and trying to share some new take on
Right.
this or that, you know.
Right.
And frankly, it's fun. You know, both of us are men, you know, and you know, that's I would much rather do than take a selfie of myself and put it up and then
Yeah.
and start watching the feed to see how many likes I can get on it. You
Right.
know, I want to see people comment on what I have to say. Yeah, you know, and then and I want to go back and battle them. Yeah, you know, like that is
Well, I tell you what I'd rather do, and this is just me, right? I would rather I would rather people get together, have conversations, face to face, and it be you know, live stream over coffee, you know. And if you smoke cigarettes, over coffee and cigarettes, whatever your preference,
you
but
do you, you know.
right. But I would like to see people actually being uh, around each other and having those conversations. And I think that might take some of that aggressive streak, you know, out of people. It may not, it may not. It
Yeah.
may make people even more like, uh, I can't stand that guy, or something like that. But um, I think there's something about being able to see a person face to face
Hmm.
that gives you the sense that this person is human too, right? And and don't get me wrong, I get the the instinct to want to, well, this person tweeted this or this person said stuff. I hope they say something. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna blast them on, I'm gonna blast them on Twitter, or I'm gonna record this thing and I hope they say something back because I'm gonna blast them on YouTube live stream, whatever. And I'm gonna get all my guys to back me, and stuff like that. I mean, again, that's but being being the uh being the Christian that I'm trying to be, I'm working on, right? Uh, I think it's good to have human interaction, right?
Yes.
And sometimes that's not possible, right? Like we I can't, we can't sit down with each other all the time, face to face, right? And so, but of course, then we also don't have, conflictual conversations. Our
Right.
conversations tend to be, you know, I'd like to think they tend to be meaningful, you know.
Yeah.
And so, that's the, for me, that is a greater joy, you know. But
So wouldn't you say that um that that social media
mhm,
in in many respects, again, working at it from the cons angle,
mhm,
um it's it's an attack on the dignity of the human person again, that
yes,
what it's doing, you know, the the human person exists in reality, in
right,
physical flesh and blood reality.
right,
And 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 God regarded that with enough dignity to incarnate into that reality to save it, you know.
Mm, yes.
And the thing is, being the rebellious little you know, fallen creatures that we are,
Yeah.
you know, I don't really think it should surprise any of us that we've crafted that we've crafted kind of like the beginnings of an alternate reality. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
and then you start talking about the metaverse and virtual reality and everything, and you have a lot of these people, a lot of these people that call themselves visionaries, I don't think they are, like
Yeah.
at the World Economic Forum and stuff, that
Right.
want you existing within a virtual world
Right.
that is a world completely within your head,
Yes.
that's not the physical world. You
Right.
know, because they have disdain for the physical world
Right.
that God loved so much that he incarnated into it and redeemed it.
Right.
And you know, I mean, it's like you know, it really, I think if you start thinking, it's like the worst, it's the worst nightmare for anybody that's not a German philosopher, you know. It's
It's
just,
like Plato's cave. It's like Plato's
yeah,
cave.
man, yes,
This guy, was on the Bible Answer Man. He said that, just like being in Plato's cave. You don't know that you are locked in a in a in a cave,
yeah.
and you don't realize that that's not reality. You know, you know, yeah, keep going because yeah, that's
Well, you know, like in Italy, there is a term for, I don't know. I think it's called the Dolce Vita, or the or or the Buena Vita, or something. It means like the good life in
yeah,
Italian.
yeah,
And
the sweet life.
yeah, like and what Italians mean by that is that like, is you get up in the morning and you drink your delicious coffee, and you're
Yeah,
living, you're existing in the world, and you're enjoying it. You know,
right.
you go to church, you go outside, you breathe in the fresh air,
Yes,
you look at the nature around you, you look at the beautiful city that's been passed down to you from your ancestors, or the people
yes,
who originally built it, you know.
yes,
And you're eating food that's flavorful and everything, and you're interacting with reality in a very, very rich and very, very dignified way. You know, you're
yes,
not worshiping reality, but what you're doing is you're fully enjoying what God has created,
right.
as much as you possibly can right now.
Yes.
You know, and what these and what a lot of these people that are a part of this anti-reality religion, you
Mhm.
know, they want to destroy that.
Yes.
and they want you existing in this metaverse where they can sell advertisements to any company all around you. You know, like I don't even know, I don't even know what you would buy in the metaverse. You know, I have no idea. It doesn't, the whole thing is absurd. You know.
Right, right. I'm sure that they're working their way towards
Oh,
doing
I'm sure.
things
Well,
right.
actually, you know what? How silly of me. You will be bought and sold on the metaverse, and somehow you'll probably buy and sell other people or something.
Or
I don't know. It's
protects his Jesus.
yeah, completely, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But
Like, so
yeah.
uh, so I did want to say one other thing about social media, and this is kind of a completely different angle from what we've been talking about.
Hmm.
Is you know, I think a lot of us that have been immersed in the world of social media for a big part of our lives now,
Hmm.
um ex- experience from time to time, um like a feeling, a sense of being mentally overwhelmed from being bombarded with so many facts. You know, like, you know, I'll go back to what Twitter and Facebook is this way too,
Hmm.
where you're bombarded with a lot of text, you know, and
Yeah.
you're bombarded with a lot of facts. You know, you're
Yes.
bombarded with opinions, you're bombarded with facts, you're bombarded with facts that sound like opinions and opinions that sound like facts, and you don't know
Yes.
what to do, and you're just overwhelmed. It's like you're scrolling through a never-ending newspaper, and there's no distinction between the editorial page and the headlines. You know, it's like
Right.
it's just all mumbled together.
Right.
And I think I think the only way that the mind can process that sheer amount of information is, I'd say there are like two categories of of uh of knowledge that you need to properly use the tool of Twitter as it's meant to be used in a positive way. One is to have knowledge that I'll call it like organizational knowledge, or maybe like analytical knowledge, that, you know, it's like morals, your philosophy, your religion,
Mm.
theology, things that you use to kind of organize the the um the facts that are coming into your mind from the world, you know,
Right.
which it's very important that that's correct, you know,
Yes.
because if your morality is I'm a salamander, then you're gonna have a really hard time processing what's on Twitter. It's gonna be difficult for you, you know. Um, you know, but but the thing is, if you don't really have, if you don't have that framework in your mind that's well ordered and structured, and that gives you the ability to really process information, and to really process data, and to really sift through it, and to
Mhm.
critically and to think quickly about, okay, so I'm gonna organize, this connects to this, this
Right.
connects to this, this connects to this. If you don't have that, um you're gonna have a really hard time. And I think it's going, and I think we all reach a limit where we get overwhelmed one point or another. It doesn't matter how elaborate and ordered our mind is,
Right.
with that like organizational knowledge and
Yes.
morals and everything. I think it's just a question of how much does it take to overwhelm that. But I do think that over time, you're able to process more and more and more information,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I do think that the more information you become accustomed to processing, I think the shorter your attention span becomes,
Yes.
which is a
Yes.
problem. And I think the only way for you to really acquire a very ordered mind with very well reasoned with a very well reasoned philosophy,
Mhm.
a very deep understanding of morals and things, I think you have to be able to concentrate for a long period of time. You know,
Yes.
I don't think you can, I don't think you can really establish that structure in your mind without, you know, I don't think you can do that in like in 3 minute um bits. You know, I
Right.
think it takes hours, and it takes the ability to be able to think very long term, and to be able to think in chunks, you know.
Yes. Yes.
And you know, so I think, you know, you have to crawl before you can walk. And
Right.
I think one of the problems is, I think our culture has done a very poor job at passing down through tradition, um you know, the ordered mind that one needs to really be able to go out into the world and just understand it, you know, and then be able to understand this hyper focused and high volume of information that you get through Twitter and stuff.
Yeah.
um if you never, you know, you're going to be very limited in what your capacity is going to be
Mhm.
if your mind is was never well developed and well ordered.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and I think you brought up the church before. I
Mhm.
think that is the biggest failure of the church today. And
Mhm.
I'm not talking about any one particular denomination of the church. I'm just
Sure.
saying across the board there are a lot of churches that have not emphasized, you know, what do we believe, and why do we believe it, what is the nature of reality, what is the nature of man, what are the
Right.
implications of all that of all those things.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you know, we've just kind of been just thrown out into the world, and then you're bombarded with all these facts and things, and
Yeah.
people can't make sense of them,
That's right. That's right.
and then they get overwhelmed, and then they get confused, and they,
They become schizophrenic. No.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They become relativists, and then
Right.
and then they go out and they start saying crazy things. You know, they'll start going around and they'll start saying, "I believe I am a salamander, therefore I am a salamander." You know, like,
Right, right. Poor old Rene Descartes, man.
Yeah, yeah, man. That poor confused guy.
Hey, brother. Well, I'll leave it there. And the last thing I'll say is let's pray that social media doesn't become a mode of idolatry if it already, unless it already has. We
Well,
hope that
I was just gonna say we should reword that and and pray for it to stop being a mode of idolatry. because I think that ship sailed in like 2006. Like
yeah. Hey, man. Yeah, brother. All right, man. Well, yeah, this is a good talk, man. I like this right here. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, me too. Yeah, yeah. Let's do it again soon.
let's do it again, brother.